So imagine this. You step into the underworld again, but this time it isn't Zagreus, the rebellious son, running through the depths trying to escape his father's grasp. Instead, you are Milanoe, his sister, a witch of shadows, standing in a damp, eerie woodland clearing where spectral shades flicker in and out of sight. The torches burn low, the cauldron bubbles with strange ingredients, and Hecate, your stern mentor, watches with piercing eyes. Right from the first moment, Hades 2 pulls you in with an atmosphere even richer, darker, and more intoxicating than its predecessor. And let me tell you, this sequel doesn't just live up to the original, it surpasses it in almost every which way. What made the first Hades such a phenomenon was the combination of razor-sharp combat, witty writing, godlike art design, and music that thumped like your heartbeat when you were one hit away from death. Hades 2 takes all of that and dials it up. Darren Korb's soundtrack doesn't just accompany the battles. It feels like the underworld itself is roaring around you. At the peak of a run, when you're locked in battle against the Titan of Time himself, the music swells into something operatic, grander than anything in the first game, like the gods are watching and demanding you prove your worth. And visually, Gen Z's new character designs practically demand to be paused and admired. If the first game launched 1,000 pieces of thirsty fan art, this one is going to flood the internet with even more. The confidence of the art, the detail in the animations, even the way characters shift their weight or glance at you, it all contributes to that intoxicating mix of beauty and danger that only Supergiant can pull off. But let's talk about Milanoe, because she isn't just Zagreus with a new haircut. She is a witch, a warrior of shadows, and her role isn't to escape but to confront. She doesn't want to leave her home. She wants to push outward, to stop Kronos, the Titan of Time, who has shattered balance itself. The game plays with this theme brilliantly. In the first Hades, we all related to Zagreus because he was trapped, suffocating, trying to break free, just as many of us felt during the pandemic when it launched. Now Supergiant flips it. This time, we are not running away, we are killing time itself. Literally. That's the central conceit. Resistance, defiance, not of a father's chains, but of oppression that grinds everything down. Your journey begins humbly. Hecate tests you early, and you'll probably fail against her on your first try. She's not just a boss. She's your headmistress, your stern teacher, someone who isn't here to coddle but to challenge. And that's the genius of this game's design. Every failure is still progress. Each night, as Milanoe leaves her clearing, armed with her witch's staff and the knowledge of previous mistakes, you feel yourself growing, learning, adapting. The roguelike structure returns in full force, but this time it leans into the occult theme. You're not just grabbing upgrades, you're foraging for herbs, mixing potions, casting incantations. Between runs, you don't just rest, you experiment, brewing up new spells that can tilt the odds in your favor. The cauldron becomes your secret weapon, your workshop of survival. And the familiars, oh, the familiars are an inspired touch. They're not just cute sidekicks, they're integrated deeply into the runs. Raki the pale raven can peck enemies into distraction or pry resources out of stone. Hecuba, the faithful hound, digs up restorative items and leaves enemies stunned in her wake. But the one that stood out for me is Tula, the wildcat. She's unpredictable, lazy at times, but when she leaps with claws bared, she tears through enemies like paper. More than that, she lets you cheat death once per run, a nod to her 9 lives. To such a clever, flavorful mechanic, both thematic and useful. It gives every run a sense of companionship, like you're not facing this abyss alone. Combat, too, feels different. Where Zagreus was all sharp edges and speed, Milanoe fights with witchcraft. Her staff swings like a spear, yes, but her abilities are infused with sorcery. You can cloak yourself in a black shroud, punching enemies into the void before jetting across the arena like a dark comet. The Umbral Flames, a spell that engulfs enemies in searing shadow fire, quickly became one of my favorites, especially when boosted by Hephaestus, whose smithing abilities make your powers hit harder and burn brighter. What's so satisfying is that the game gives you more ways than ever to tip the balance in your favor. The upgrades feel weighty, transformative. And yet, just when you think you've got it under control, the game tempts you with delicious risks. Nightmarish variants of boss fights, for example, up the stakes dramatically. Do you risk it for better rewards? Do you walk into a fight knowing it might be your last? That tension is at the heart of Hades 2. But what really elevates the game beyond mechanics is the writing. Greg Cassavan's script was sharp in the first game, full of wit and flirtation. Here it's sharper still. The banter between gods is clever, layered, and often hilarious. Scylla, leading a pop-punk siren band, literally sings mid-battle about tearing your eyes out and drowning you in Oceanus. It's absurd, it's funny, but it's also strangely beautiful. Nemesis, grumpy and prideful, can't stand that you're essentially doing her job. So she shows up, blocking exits, forcing duels, sulking like a rival student who refuses to be outdone. Even Chaos, dressed in a power suit, manages to be both unnerving and oddly charismatic. And like before, relationships matter. Nectar, ambrosia, gifts. All those tokens of affection unlock deeper dialogue, deeper bonds. Slowly, through persistence, you chip away at hostility. And that's the quiet heart of the game. Conflict, yes, but also resolution. The idea that enemies can become allies, that discord can be soothed through persistence, kindness, or at least respect. As you climb higher and delve deeper, the encounters grow more intense, but what sticks with you are the themes. Hades 2 isn't just about flashy combat or witty gods. It's about solidarity. The final stretch of the game makes that crystal clear. Resistance isn't about one hero saving the day. It's about everyone playing their part. Whether you fight high in the heavens of Olympus or low in the dungeons of the underworld, strength comes from connection, from unity. It's a message that feels urgent, even political, without ever being heavy-handed. You feel it in the mechanics, gifting ambrosia, allying with one's enemies, accepting aid from gods you may not fully trust. You feel it in the narrative arcs, where even characters steeped in spite can be swayed. And you feel it in the ending, where the struggle against Kronos isn't framed as a solo triumph, but as the product of many hands working together. What makes this sequel so remarkable is how it balances familiarity with reinvention. The loop is still there: fight, die, grow, repeat. But every layer feels richer, more imaginative. The occult systems, the familiars, the expanded combat, they're all meaningful evolutions. The writing, the art, the music, they're all more ambitious, more confident. And above all, the game understands why we fell in love with Hades in the first place. Not just because it was fun, but because it spoke to us. Back then, Zagreus's desperate escapes mirrored our own cabin fever. Now, Milanoi's fight against time itself mirrors our need to resist forces larger than us. Forces that want to grind us down. It's a metaphor wrapped in myth, delivered through gameplay that feels alive in your hands. And then, when the run ends, whether in triumph or failure, you return to that clearing. The shades drift silently, the cauldron simmers, and Hecate waits. You look at Milanoe, shoulders squared, eyes burning with resolve, and you realize, this isn't just a sequel. It's a declaration. Supergiant has taken their masterpiece, dared to follow it, and somehow, against all odds, made it even better.